just as sort of an outline of what we're going to be talking about tonight, and hopefully really covering all the things you need to know. Really those main points are, first off, who is going to the event? And when I say who is going, I mean what companies, studios, organizations. How do you know who's going, and how do you find out which organizations or companies are a good fit for you and your interest? Then we're going to talk a little bit about what the event's like. So most of you probably haven't gone to Internship Connect before. Some of you may have and have a pretty good idea of what the event is like, and you're just trying to prepare as best you can, and that's fantastic. But my guess is that a lot of you haven't attended before, so hopefully you have an understanding of what the event looks like, feels like, before you leave here tonight. Another important question, how do you prepare? What do you need to bring? What are you going to be saying when you speak to companies? Those kinds of things. We'll talk about that, and hopefully you have a good understanding of that by the time we're done. I've mentioned this, but how do you talk, right? How do you have that conversation when you go up and introduce yourself to a professional and to a representative from a company? And then the last thing, and this is sort of something that a lot of people overlook, but it's really important, and that's how do you follow up with the people you met, the companies you met at Internship Connect? How do you follow up in the next couple of days afterwards, and why is that important? So the first question, who's going? So first of all, we have 80 plus organizations, creative organizations, that are attending the event, bless you, which is a really, really fantastic number. This is the largest Internship Connect we've ever had. So on top of bringing those 80 companies to campus, there's usually, in the past, we've had about 400 students attend throughout the course of the 3-hour event, so it's a pretty big event, and there's great interest from you guys, which is why we do it. And then, as you could kind of see when we were raising hands, all different majors, all different years in school, undergrads, grads, it's really a very open event. And that's what we love about it. So, many of you probably have seen this website. Who has seen the website for this event before? Most of you. Okay, good. Some of you haven't though, so I'll point out some key things. So, if you have not seen it, I really, really, really strongly encourage you to check out internshipconnect.risd.edu. We created this as sort of a one-stop shop for all of your questions for the event, so that you understand what to expect, who's coming, how you can prepare, all of these things. And obviously we're going to go through these things tonight, but if you, in the next couple of days or next week, you forget some of the things we talked about here, a lot of that information will be on the website. When it comes to figuring out who's coming, what companies are coming, and who you want to meet with, and exploring what studios might be a good fit for you, up here in the right-hand corner of the website, there's a tab called Participating Companies, and it brings you to this page. This snapshot was actually taken about a month or two ago, so the list has grown significantly since then. But this is a great way to sort of explore who's attending, and what we've tried to do is make this as clear as possible, where you can see the company, and then below that is a code for the majors that that company has said they're interested in speaking with. That doesn't mean that if you see a company and your major isn't listed there, that doesn't mean that you can't go and speak with them. If you feel really strongly that your work is a good fit for the work of that studio, and you really feel like you align nicely with the work of that company, then by all means, go up, introduce yourself, and explain to them why you think you're a good fit. But this is meant to help you sort of guide and understand what companies are sort of looking for and who they're looking to speak with. But again, like I said, it's not meant to be rigid. If you want to get outside of this a little bit, it's okay to do that. And just to say, this might be fairly obvious, but I would also encourage you not just look at the codes, but take it a step deeper, especially if you're unfamiliar with the work of the company. And all of these are hyperlinked, and you can go straight to the website, see the work, see the feel, see the style, and again, see if it matches with your aesthetic and the kind of work you want to be doing in an internship. So just to say, all of those lists, everybody on that list is connected, and you can go and explore the work, which is definitely something I would encourage you all to do. A sort of next step after that. So after you've maybe narrowed down a list of 5, maybe even 10 places that you wanted to meet with, 10 companies that you were interested in speaking with at Internship Connect, one of the things I would do is go on Artworks, which is our sort of job internship portal for RISD students, and search their name either by keyword or by organization name, and see if they've posted internship opportunities to Artworks already. So we've encouraged all the companies attending to post opportunities in advance so that you as the student can go and see what they're looking for. Not all are going to do this, even though we encourage them to, but many will. So this is an example right here of where this hypothetical student is interested in AdVentures, a local advertising company. They go on Artworks, search, see that they have an animation internship, and then they can go in and look at details about what that internship is about, and also what the qualifications, you can see here at the bottom, what the qualifications are, what they're looking for, what software does that student need to know for that internship, what are the types of tasks they're going to be involved in. So I really, really encourage you, if you have sort of like a narrowed list of some companies that you're interested in, see if they have an internship posting already. Because if you have that knowledge in advance of the event, that's something you can talk about with the representative when you get there. You can mention that you saw the internship and that you think you're a good fit because you have the skills that they said they're looking for. Make sense? Cool. And just to say, I mean, there's 80 plus organizations coming, so I'm about to show you a few examples just to kind of show the range of different kinds of companies that are attending. This obviously isn't representative of the full group, but I just wanted to kind of give you a taste. So everything from design and innovation consulting firms, from good for oftentimes industrial designers, graphic designers, to an amazing arts organization like Cambridge Arts based in Massachusetts, to an architecture firm like CBT Architects, to another strategy and consulting firm based in Boston called Continuum, which is a place where many RISD alumni have gone on to work and many RISD students have interned. David Gaynor Design, furniture design studio in New York, also a RISD alum, also a place where RISD people have worked before as well, coming to the event. Really cool to have RISD alumni coming back. That's something we always try to do when we invite people to this event. Another RISD alumni founded company, Down City Design, right here in Providence, who is basically, as you can see from the image there, sort of working to cultivate design within the city. And a lot of what they do is go into the local schools and teach design principles to students who can then activate their own design within the communities and sort of make art and design work for the city of Providence in the way that they see fit, in the way that makes sense to them in their community. So it's a really cool organization. And like I said, this is another studio founded by a RISD graduate. Superhelos is a company that great for illustrators, for sure, that creates products from storybooks to games that are meant to help children that are in the hospital dealing with sickness, kind of help them have a positive outlook and also understand what they're going through better. Really, really cool company doing amazing work. And then a lot of you probably are familiar with Urban Outfitters. They're coming and interested in everything from apparel and textile design, graphic design, but as you can see, definitely a good range of apparel companies that are attending as well. Another ad agency, Droga 5, really fantastic creative agency. Ellery Homestyle, so one that's good for textile designer who might be interested in using their textile skills in applications of home and interiors. Local toy company Hasbro, one of the biggest toy makers in all of the world, is in the top 3 in all the biggest toy makers in the entire world, happens to be based right here in Rhode Island. Another company that's really looking at a huge range of majors, so definitely a good one to keep an eye on. And another company that typically hires a lot of RISD students, both interns and full-time work once you graduate. Many people know Kohler for their bathroom and furniture and decorative products as well. So you get a sense, right? I mean, I only showed you probably 12 there. There's 80, so that's not representative of everybody that's coming, and if I didn't touch on your major with that short list, I apologize, but there is a really representative slice of the different companies that are coming, and you can go on the website to check them out. This is a nice aerial shot that actually Jason, who I mentioned earlier, took for us at last year's event, which I think gives a pretty good vibe and feel for what the event looks like and what its kind of scope and scale is. So as you can see, the setup is lines of tables and an aisle in between that students can kind of walk up and down, and each, you can kind of get a sense, each table behind it has a sign that indicates what the company or studio or firm is, who it is, who the representatives are from, or where they're from, I should say. And you're free, it's very free form. So you're free as a student to kind of walk around and essentially strike up a conversation with any studio or company that you're interested in. The one thing I would say, you can kind of get a sense here where you can see a line forming. Some companies may have lines. There might be multiple students who want to talk to those representatives at the same time, in which case we just ask that you kind of do first come, first serve, form a line behind them. These conversations are going to be quick, probably almost certainly under 5 minutes, maybe even 2 to 3, depending. So it's not like you'll be waiting forever, but just understand that that could happen, where there could be a line forming around certain companies, but not all. But that's basically the way that the event works, where you're kind of walking around, and ideally, like I said, you've gone on the website and you've sort of narrowed the list of places you want to meet with, and you have sort of a strategy for who you want to speak with. And maybe what I would encourage is even a priority list of narrowing down, okay, this is my number 1, this is my number 2, this is my number 3, so that you know as you go through the night, you're at least hitting on your top, and if you don't get to a certain group of companies that you're not as excited about, that's not the end of the world. So as you can see, it's very conversational, right? The idea here is that the core of this event is really just about you introducing yourself to companies and hearing from them about their internship opportunities, about what the day-to-day looks like for an intern, a creative intern at their company, what they're looking for, what skill sets, and how you can best apply. They might give you tips for what they typically look for, what they want to see in a portfolio when you apply, what they look for in a resume. So the core of the event really is that conversation, and we're going to dive deeper into this and talk about how you can prepare for that conversation. The other thing you'll notice, and you can kind of see here with what this student is holding, they might have little, students might have little giveaways. They might have something to leave behind. So we're going to talk about this, but really there's 2 key important things, and those would be a resume that you'd want to be able to leave behind, and possibly, we strongly recommend this, though it's not required, a portfolio sample. And we'll get into this a little bit, but also you'll see that students will be dropping things off at tables so that the representatives can have something to take with them after the fact. So now I'm going to jump into how you can prepare, how you can be confident going into this event that you've got everything squared away and that you have everything you need and that you know what you want to be saying to these people. So we'll talk about knowing how to tell your story. We'll talk about, as I mentioned, creating resumes and portfolio samples that you can leave behind with the employers you meet with. And we'll also talk about how you can research the employers beforehand beyond what we showed before, which is simply just going and clicking on their website and seeing what their work looks like. So I say know your story. And I say it that way because when you introduce yourself to a company, you do want to be able to tell them a little bit about yourself. So more than just your name. But you also want to be able to talk to them about what year you are in school, what you're studying, why you're studying that, right? Why did you choose a specific major at RISD? Why do you have a specific affinity or passion for that type of art or that type of design? And it's important that you be able to describe those things and articulate those things because that's how they get to know you. And that's how they get to get a sense of who you are as a maker, as a creative, and whether you might be a good fit for the internship they have to offer. So I show this picture on the right because I think when you're first thinking about it as a student, it might kind of feel, knowing how to tell your story might kind of feel like this image looks a little bit. Very dense, kind of almost convoluted and clustered, and you're like, I don't even know where to begin with this. But I think if you look at some of these questions that I'm about to lay out, maybe it'll help you sort of untangle that a little bit and be more confident in describing that when you meet somebody. So one of those questions could be, as I said, what are your goals? At this point in your student career, at this point as a student, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Do you have a goal for when you graduate RISD? Do you already know what you might want to do professionally? What kinds of jobs seem appealing to you? Have you seen artists and designers in the world that you admire and you'd love to do the kind of work that they're doing? Things like that. What are you passionate about? And maybe even another way to think about this, what are your strengths? What are your skills as an artist or a designer? Are you really good with technology and software? Are you really good with fabrication? Are you really good with drawing and concepting? What are your strengths? Think about what have your teachers and professors told you you're really good at? What have your peers told you you're really good at? What stands out when you show your portfolio to somebody? What do they comment on? Things to think about. Here's another one. You all are here because you want an internship, right? And you're going to go to the event next week because you want an internship. But what do you want to learn? Why do you want an internship? What kind of organization are you looking for? What are you hoping to gain from that? Right? Hopefully, it's not just about getting an internship to say you got an internship. Hopefully, there's a reason behind what you want to do, what you're hoping to learn, and what that experience can mean to you. And these are things you can talk about with the companies, too. And then, I brought this up earlier, but another good question to ask, why'd you choose your major? If you're a freshman, I know it's a little harder because you're not in your major yet. What majors are you thinking about choosing? Maybe you have a couple in mind, maybe there's 2 or 3 that are sort of drawing your attention right now. Maybe you know what you're going to be choosing. If you're a sophomore, junior, senior, grad student, you know, what major are you in or what program are you in as a grad student and why? And what sort of trajectory is your career taking? And the other thing I would just say is going to this event, be confident. Here's the thing. We have 80 organizations that are coming, more than 80, 80 plus, that are coming to see you. They're coming because they want to talk to you. They want to meet you, they want to see your resume, they want to see samples of your work because they know you guys are talented and they know you're great people and they want to have you as part of their organization as an intern, right? So that should feel good. You guys should feel good about that. It's natural to be nervous about it, for sure. But definitely go into it with confidence and know that they're there to talk to you. They're not there to try to intimidate you or be mean. And so just go in knowing, you know what, I have something to offer these organizations and it's going to be a great experience learning what the internships they have to offer are going to be like. Like I said, there are a few things that you need to bring. And this is all on the website. So on the website, there's a student section right here. This entire page kind of outlines everything you guys need to know. But obviously, we'll talk about it right now, too. So one thing I would say, and hopefully you kind of got a sense from that video that we just showed, but you want to try to dress up for this event, right? You want to look better than you would on an average studio day. You certainly don't want to, roll up with charcoal on your face or, paint on your hands if you can avoid it. Like, try to be a little bit more presentable than you would be on a typical day at the studio. The way to think about this is, if you show up and you're dressed nicely, the organization is going to see that and respect that and know that you're sort of approaching this with the seriousness that it deserves. And they'll really appreciate that and, in turn, be sort of way more receptive to you than if you kind of showed up looking like you just rolled out of bed. So there's no dress code, but just keep it in mind as you're getting ready for the event that you want to try to look presentable. The other thing I would say is definitely bring your RISD ID. So just like tonight, we're going to be swiping you guys in. This is really the main thing here, is that we obviously want to make sure that only RISD students are attending this. So it's more to kind of make sure the event stays for you guys as it should. So please bring your ID and resumes. So this is really important. What I would encourage is that you all bring multiple copies. It doesn't have to be on a nice paper or anything, but multiple copies of your resume so that you can leave that behind as you're having conversations with companies so that they have a way to follow up with you, they have a way to see and learn more about your experience. So the resumes are really key. These are optional. These are not definite things that you need. Don't feel pressured to make these, but they're nice to have. I would consider these bonuses, and they really sort of leave a professional, a really highly professional view of you. The companies, if you leave these behind, they're going to feel like, oh, this is somebody who's really got it together and is already sort of looking professional even as a student. So business cards fall under that category. I mentioned portfolio samples. We'll look at a few of those. Creative leave behinds. I'll show examples of what I mean by that. And this is more logistical, but you'll also be meeting people, maybe getting business cards from representatives of companies, maybe taking pamphlets. They might have information about their internships on the table. So maybe a bag or a folder to bring stuff to put what you collect into. So back to what we need, I'm going to kind of dive down on this a little bit deeper. Some of you might be thinking, okay, I need a resume. I wasn't sure about that before, now I know. What do I do? I'm a little nervous about making a resume. How can I find help around that? Good news is, on our website, we have an entire guidebook that many of you have probably seen, but maybe not all of you, that sort of walks you through how to build a resume. So it's on our website, as I said, under Career Resources, Handouts and Guides, this Resume and Career Essentials book. I'll just kind of scroll through, that's what it looks like. But inside, as I said, there's an actual step-by-step guide on how to build a resume, as well as visual examples that are sort of based off of actual RISD students as well. So it's a really helpful way if you're struggling with how to build your resume to get some guidance. And the one thing I'll say, I'm not going to dive into resumes too deeply, but the one thing I would say is create a resume that emphasizes skills that are relevant to the types of internships you're interested in. Make sure to remember that your RISD studios, the classes and studios you're taking now, can really be considered relevant experience too. So think about the projects you're making, think about what you're learning in studios, and that can be things that you would put on a resume as well. And then any other kinds of related jobs, whether it's on campus, or maybe you did a volunteer position, or maybe you've had past internships or jobs as well, depending on where you're at, that would appeal. Think about what past experiences would appeal to the different kinds of companies and studios you're looking at. So resume is key. Resume is pretty much required, I would say. Portfolio samples, I think, is a bonus. So this is a great sort of pairing with the resume. As you can see from these visual examples, the idea here is that it's more or less a one-pager that sort of gives a nice sample of your creative work. So these are just a few examples. This one's an apparel design example where we see somebody with a finished piece, but also you can see that they have the skill of fashion illustration, and you see that they're strong with hand rendering and concepting that way, right? So that gives a sense on one page of the different aesthetic that this person has and also their skill set. This one in the middle, a graphic design example, shows more of a range of different projects and work. There's a little bit more projects here, but this is trying to show, again, that range as opposed to sort of more in-depth skills on this one. And then this is more, I think, an example that shows, an affinity and a use of a specific material, again, as well as a style and aesthetic of the work. So these are just to give you an idea. I'm not saying yours have to look exactly like this, but this is a really powerful thing for you to bring, because then the resume is sort of the verbal representation of your skills and experience, and this is the visual representation of the creative work and art and design skills that you have, and they pair really well together. So these are, if you have those two things, I'd say you're in great shape leading up into the event. Business cards, again, an optional thing. I think it makes you look extremely professional, and it's also another way to show work in a really tight format, similar to the portfolio sample. Usually, as you can see from these examples, you might have sort of like a signature image on the front, and then on the back, essentially just your name and contact information. And ideally, you have your work online so that somebody can go and see more work online if they want to follow up that way, and get in touch with you if they're interested about talking about an internship. Another similar way to showcase yourself is through a postcard. This is a little bit more common with fine artists as opposed to a business card, but it's just a similar idea, signature image, contact information on the back, something you can leave behind so that they remember you. I mentioned earlier creative leave-behinds. I think these are fun. I mean, you're here at RISD, you're a creative person. It's okay to be creative in the way that you represent yourself, in the way that you pitch yourself at this event. And this is one way to do that. Instead of a traditional business card, this person sort of created this image and this piece, I should say, as a way to sort of stand out and a way to showcase themselves a little bit and give a little bit of their personality as part of the event. I think it's a really effective way to do that. Another similar example here. I don't want you to be in any way feel like you have to do this. Don't put the pressure on yourself, because I know you have studio and a million other things going on. But if you have the time and you want to have fun with this, this is a cool way to stand out. So transitioning a little bit, the other thing I would do, so on top of crafting your resume, ideally crafting a portfolio sample, maybe even business cards if you have the time, I think this is a really important component too. It's not necessarily something that you bring with you in a tangible form, but it's more preparation before the event. And that's aside from just going to a website and looking at work, how do you research and understand the employer so that you know as much as you can about them before the event, and that'll help inform the conversation that you have with them. So here's an example, just using Etsy as an example of a way you can do that. So this seems very simple, but most companies have an about page where you can go and learn about the culture of the company, learn about the basic services that they offer, and sort of what their general mission is. Etsy's a really good example of a company that sort of takes it to the next level and really allows you to learn a lot about them through their website. Not every company does this to this extent, but some do, and it's a really powerful way to understand if you're a good fit, understand if that's a place that you would want to intern, and like I said, also sort of have conversation points, have things you can talk about when you meet with the company. So in this example, they have a nice paragraph where they talk about how the company was founded, why it was founded, who founded it. It's cool information that you could potentially bring to the conversation. I love this. So they have these sort of like illustrated points here where they talk about what do they value, what's their mission as a company. And you could understand all of a sudden, do I fit? Do I align with these values, right? Do I value craftsmanship? Am I mindful and transparent, and do I believe in sort of being humane, right? Hopefully most people do. But you get to see that their values are important to them and not just about making money, right? Similar to that, if you dive even deeper on this, you can understand that Etsy is a certified B Corporation, and just to sum that up quickly, that's basically them volunteering to take a yearly test where they're evaluated on things like their environmental impact, their social impact. Are they being charitable with some of their profits, where they're giving that to funds and charities that are going to make impact to the community? So they're not just being judged on do we make money, they're also being judged on are we doing right by our local community, by our national community, by our global community. And that's cool, because you may not have known that unless you dug down and sort of looked at their website. And again, these are things that you can potentially bring up in the conversation as to why you want to intern at that place. Blogs, social media, even going to their website and looking at open positions, seeing what kinds of positions they have, what they typically look for. Are they hiring, in this case, a design intern? I could click on that position, see what they're looking for, and again, have confidence going into the Internship Connect that I'm a good fit for what they're looking for. And I can also have a heads up on my application and know what I should be including in my resume and my portfolio sample. I mentioned social media, also a really good way. Sometimes companies will post opportunities on their social media, in this case LinkedIn. Also a cool way to see who else works at that company already. You can see if RISD alumni are working there. You can see what their profiles look like, what their background is, what their skills are, what they studied in school. And again, it's another way to kind of get a sense of the company and see if you're a good fit. Stay up to date on news and articles that are posted on social media that the company's trying to highlight. And I think maybe a little bit more for fun and inspirational, but just follow something like Instagram and see if it kind of, if the attitude of the company is good fit for you. So then comes down to, okay, I've got my materials, I've researched companies, I know who I want to speak with. What am I actually going to say the day of? What am I going to say when I meet these companies? So to prepare for that, here are just some things to think about. Why do you want an internship? Your passions and key skills, what are your strengths? Which pieces in your portfolio relate to the companies that you're going to speak with? Because you might be speaking to different kinds of companies, and some of the pieces in your portfolio might fit company A, and some might be a better fit for company B. So just thinking about that ahead of time so that when you have that portfolio sample, you can know which ones you want to point to and how you want to talk about each piece, right? So I think that's a really helpful thing to think about in advance. Just think about how you would talk about and describe your creative process, right? How do you start when you're in the concept phase, then when you're iterating and deciding different ideas and different concepts and tweaking it, how does that process work for you? And then what's the final product look like, right? So just think about these things. What's your creative process look like? Because that's not always the same person to person. And then, this seems simple and might even sound a little silly, but practice it. Ideally, honestly, even if it's just sitting in front of a mirror and pretending it's there the day of, right? Give your 30 to 60 second kind of pitch about who you are, what you study, what your process looks like, what your strongest skills are, and just see how it sounds and rehearse it a little bit. Because then the day of, it won't be the first time you're describing that to somebody, and it'll feel less staggered and less unnatural. It'll feel more comfortable. You could also try to do it with friends. You could record yourself doing it and see how it sounds. There's lots of ways you can do it, and I know it'll feel kind of weird, but it'll actually help you the day of. So I really recommend just practicing how you talk about yourself and your work. And like I said before, at the end of the day, don't put too much pressure on yourself. This isn't all on you. The companies are going to be there, ready to talk about what they do, ready to talk about the internships. So it's going to be a two-way conversation, but you just want to be prepared with your end of the deal, so to speak, so that you come across as best you can. Last thing, so we talked about you maybe bringing business cards or bringing things to leave behind. I would strongly encourage that you ask at the end of the conversation, that you ask for a business card, or at least an email address, something where you can stay in touch with them and be in touch with them moving forward. We're going to get to follow up in a minute, but it's really important that you have a way to follow up and stay in contact with the people so that it just doesn't end that day of. You can have a fabulous conversation and feel like, oh my God, I'm such a good fit for Etsy, or I'm such a good fit for Cambridge Arts or Continuum or whoever, but if you don't have a way to follow up with them after the event, it might have been, you might have missed your opportunity even though you were a really good fit. So it's important that you try to be able to stay in touch with them after the fact. When you're introducing yourself, just a suggestion. Introduce yourself, nice firm handshake and a smile goes a long way. As I said before, just be confident, right? You're there to meet with these companies and they're there because they want to meet with you. So just go in with confidence. I think that's a great way to start the conversation. Introduce yourself, and then you can kind of launch into your talk about who you are and what you do. This is a sample intro. So yours doesn't have to sound exactly like this, but I thought it would be helpful for you to have a model to work off of. So, the introduction. My name is Jane Doe, and I'm a junior in apparel design. Even though I really enjoy creating original apparel pieces, I'm also very interested in branding and visual display for retail interiors. I've always been an admirer of the unique visual style of urban stores, and so I'm excited you came today. Would you be able to tell me about the types of internship opportunities you have available? Right? So it's a really brief introduction about why they're excited about urban, a little bit about who they are, what they make, and their interests and passions, remember tying it back to what we talked about before, and then a question that sort of jumpstarts the conversation. So to the point of those questions, that was one example. Here are some others that you can consider as well. First, what are some good questions that I can ask so that I can get the conversation moving in the direction that I want it to go in? And also, ideally, these are also things that you want to know, right? These are actually things you'd like to hear the answers to. So, what types of internships are available? That was the one we just saw. Can you tell me about your role in the organization? So learning more about what they do, right? You've just told them what you do as an artist or a designer. Ask them what they do working at Urban or whatever company they work at. What are you looking for in a potential intern? So what skills, what qualifications, what are the things that I need to know how to do? Have you hired RISD interns before? It could be really helpful to hear if they have. A, that's good news for you, but also you might then be able to hear about projects that those RISD interns worked on. What kind of work did they do for the company? And keep in mind, this is also you evaluating whether you want to intern there at all, right? You might have a conversation and realize, hearing the day-to-day with that company, it doesn't feel like it's a good fit for me, and that's okay. Part of this day is about learning and it's about exploring. So you don't have to feel like every single company you talk to is a home run, right? How long do internships typically last at the organization? Is it 1 month, 3 months, right? And then sort of prompting them to want to see your resume, take your portfolio sample, or a business card. As we mentioned, so you've had a great conversation. You asked for the business card, you nailed it, you remembered, you got their email. Again, I want to point out, just because it's helpful, on the website, oops, sorry about that. Also in the student section, there's a follow-up section, which kind of walks you through how to do this a little bit. But, to talk about it in the moment right now, ideally what you do with follow-up is within a day or two after Internship Connect, you write an email, so you've got your business cards of the people you met with, and you write an email just thanking them for taking the time. I mean, I think it is important to remember that these professionals are taking time out of their day. They're traveling, in a lot of cases, maybe even traveling from the West Coast, so significant travel, to come and see you. And so that's a cool thing, but you want to thank them for it. And it's really, like, that's such a great representation of you as a person if you do that. And just to say, for future reference, if you interview for internships, make sure you follow up after you interview and say thanks too. It's just really important. It's sort of like common professional etiquette. And like I said, it's a really good indication of who you are as a person. So one thing, you're just following up and saying, hey, thanks for taking the time to have a conversation with me at Internship Connect. The other thing I would include in that follow-up email, there are a few things. One is, if you can, try to make note of a specific part of your conversation with that individual that stood out. So then there's a reason behind this. It shows that you're thoughtful, right? It shows that you paid attention to what the conversation was about and that you appreciated their insight. Also, it helps that individual remember who you are. So if they can remember that conversation point that you had, so if they gave you a really cool critique of one of the pieces, or one of your pieces in your portfolio sample really stood out to them and they had a cool comment about it, you can jog their memory, you can help them remember that, and then that in that email makes them remember you, and then maybe they follow up and say they want to talk to you about an internship, right? So one of the things I would do, and this is going to be tough, but try to remember this, after the event, you're probably just going to be, a little tired and you're going to have had a lot of conversations, and you're probably just going to want to like go crash, and I totally get that. But maybe take a couple minutes and just jot down, okay, I met with Anne from ABC or from Continuum or wherever you met, and Anne had this to say about my work, or Anne had this to say about their internships, and I thought that was really cool. Because then when you go to follow up, you're going to have that all written down, and you're not going to have to remember it 2 days later or a day later. It's all going to be there, and then you just kind of have to write the actual email, write the text. So if you can remember that, it's a really helpful thing to do. And then the last thing I would encourage you to do with your follow-up, so on top of thanking them, referencing something in the conversation, the third thing, also the whole point of this, right, is so that you can hopefully get an internship. So ask a question. Say, I'm really excited, our conversation really affirmed for me that this is a place I want to be, that I want to intern at your company and at your studio. How do you recommend I proceed? Is there an application deadline that I need to be aware of? Should I submit my materials to you? What's just the proper way to go forward? Because I'm really excited about the potential for an internship with CBT Architects or whoever it is, right? So it's a way to get the conversation going and moving forward about the potential for an interview or those kinds of things. So that's the core of following up. Pretty easy, pretty basic, it'll take a little bit of time, but it's really important that you do that follow-up. And then these are people that you can stay in touch with throughout the rest of the year too, especially if we're talking about a summer internship. You want to be able to stay in touch with them throughout the rest of the year as you're exploring those options. Again, sort of in the bonus category, not required. But if you wanted to also, maybe for like your top 2 companies that you feel really great about and you want to try to intern with, you could try to do a handwritten note that you would mail in snail mail. I know it's probably like a crazy thing to think about, but people still do that nowadays. And you could actually send them a nice handwritten note. And that really does stand out, because think about it, most of what we receive nowadays is email. So when you get a nice, beautiful handwritten thank you note, it really does stand out, and it's cool. And again, it's another way potentially to kind of show your creativity, show your style a little bit. So that's a nice touch. Don't feel like you have to do that, but if you are really trying to kind of step up your game and take it to the next level, that can be a cool thing to do too. So if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, don't stress about it. This is something that you can come in and talk with our advisors about, and we'll help you with LinkedIn. But I will say this, connecting on LinkedIn is a really smart idea too. So you can search for the individuals you met at the event, see if they're on LinkedIn, excuse me, and extend an invitation to connect. And that's another way, on top of having their business card, where you can stay connected over a long period of time. And who knows, these individuals could end up being mentors for you. If they're working at companies that you admire, and they're doing art and design work that you admire, it could be really cool for you to stay in touch with them over the next couple of years, and periodically they might be able to look at your portfolio and offer you advice and critique. I'm not saying that happens all the time, but it is a cool thing that can arise from this kind of event. So it's a cool way to stay connected over time. And that's just a sample message where you're just, again, kind of thanking them, really briefly, thanking them for seeing you at the event, commenting and saying how their thoughts were impactful to you, and just asking if you can stay connected. Last but not least, kind of wrapping up here, if any of this was unclear, or you feel like you have a question that maybe we didn't touch on, this is our staff, and our whole reason for existence is to help you guys with your career questions. And I mean that sincerely. Like, we're there to help you out. We want to be available for you. We can take career advising appointments, either 30 or 60 minutes. The other thing we do is we do drop-in advising, where during certain hours of the day and the week, you can come in without an appointment, quick 15, maybe max 20-minute meeting, and ask your quick career questions. So this is great for if you want to have somebody look at your resume before Internship Connect, for example, or you have a few more questions about what your intro should sound like, or just more questions about what the event is going to look like and you're sort of not sure about it. Anything really, anything career related, you can come. So typically, drop-in hours are 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., so kind of during that lunchtime hour, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday we do them in the afternoons or evenings, and that's actually a little incorrect, sorry about that. It's 4:30 to 6, so not 4:30 to 6:30, 4:30 to 6. But you can come for those 15-minute drop-in meetings. The 2 days before the event, so the 24th of October and the 25th, we're doing extended drop-in hours so that you guys can come in and get like last-minute questions answered about Internship Connect. You can kind of see we have a live drop-in calendar on our website, but basically on the 24th it's 9 to 3, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The day before the event, the 25th, 10:30 to 4:30. Drop-ins basically the whole day there, so you can come in and get last-minute questions answered.